just keep you from putting our kids in the ground. So we can't stand down. No, we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't stand down, brother. So we'll stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. 'Cause we know what's right. And we got plenty of fight. And if you think you're gonna keep pushing us around, well, you'll lose that crown. 'Cause we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've got to stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. You know, it's pretty clear. If these lunatics think they have the right to strip us of our rights of self-defense, and if they're willing to do that, what else are they willing to do? We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. No, we won't back down. Back down, baby. There ain't no.
Hello, happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you all for joining us for forgoing the Super Bowl and spending some time with us tonight. I have Philip Van Cleave here with me and Jill McDaniel. The General Assembly is in session. We had crossover day this past week, so all of the Senate bills are being heard in the House, and all of the House bills are being heard in the Senate, those that have not been killed yet. Philip, would you like to update us on all of that?
Yeah, this year is going to look a lot like last year. There is one bill that we supported that's alive. In fact, it's passed both houses now. So it's going to head to the governor's desk to be signed at some point in the future, which hopefully may not be too far out, actually, this early into the last part of the session. I think he has like 10 days to sign it or something, or a week. I can't remember what it is. But that bill was actually three separate bills that all had the same wording, and they all got put together into one bill, passed, and then sent to the governor. And the bill that passed is HB 2595. Delegate Singh, Singh, who is a Democrat, I believe it's Loudoun County, that put in that bill. But the others get credit as well. That put in the bill. The Republican that did it was Delegate Ballard. And so that's the good news, and that's it passed unanimously out of both houses. So, and what that bill did was it just says if you buy a gun safe from any retailer, doesn't have to be an FFL, any retailer, that you can write off up to $300 on your taxes. Now, there's a caution in this. They don't really put but $5 million in the fund, and that sounds like a lot of money, but apparently last year they ran out in August, where people that bought safes after August didn't get reimbursed because they didn't have the money in the budget to do it. And really, if the Democrats want to be useful, they would put some more money into that fund. But this year it's going to be, so, by the same $5 million. So if you're going to buy a safe, you're thinking about it, I would wait, right after this becomes law on July 1, I would head out and buy my safe. And so forth. So definitely would do that. Now, much like last year, we have got a slew of gun control bills. Now, we managed to derail one bill last week. And that bill was Senator Marsden And the bill that we derailed would have said that you have to keep, if you don't have a permit, a concealed carry permit, you'd have to leave your gun in the open in your car while you're driving. If you have to get out of the car to go into a gun-free zone, like one of those highly guarded with barbed wire fences rest areas, the ones that have all that security. Yeah, right. If you go into that gun-free zone, for example, you'd have to leave your gun on the seat or on the dash in plain view so criminals could quickly do their shopping, their Christmas shopping as they walk through the parking lot. And that's how stupid that bill was. And if you didn't have a permit and you bought a gun safe, you couldn't use it because as soon as you put the gun in your gun safe, you would then have the gun that's not in the open anymore. They took out that exemption. If that bill had passed, they took away the exemption that you can put a loaded gun in your glove compartment or your console as long as it's latched. And then you could leave it that way without a permit while you're driving and everything else. So this bill, I brought it to their attention during the subcommittee hearing that this thing contradicted a bill they already passed that said you have to have your gun locked up out of sight. I said there's no way you can do both. You can either have it in sight or you can have it concealed, but you can't do both. And the subcommittee was scratching their heads and talking back and forth and trying to come up with a solution. So what they ended up doing was they took that bill and they conformed it. In other words, they made it have the same language as one of the bills that had passed earlier out of the House that said, the gun has to be concealed in a safe. Now, that's not law. That part isn't law yet, but it became part of that bill. So now, rather than fighting two different bills, we now only have to fight one. And hopefully the governor will veto the one that requires you to have the gun locked out of sight. Otherwise, you become a victim of the government. So anyhow, so we did knock one off the list. On the list right now, we've just got a whole bunch of the usual bad stuff. And Pat sort of labeled this whole thing, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. And she did that because the governor said, if you send me the same bills I've already vetoed, I'm going to veto them again. And right. So they knew this, and they knew some of these were unconstitutional because last year they asked their own attorney that sits in the Senate courts of justice. They said, would this possibly be unconstitutional? He said, yeah, there's an extremely high chance it's unconstitutional. And they said, fine, and they passed it anyhow. Well, same thing happened this year. So what are we looking at? What's out there that's headed to the governor's desk? Well, we have, let me magnify this a little bit. If there's a prohibited person, like you become a prohibited person temporarily, maybe a restraining order or whatever, they have a bill that says you have to turn your guns over to somebody that's 21 or older and they can't live with you. And that's a real problem, especially if it's a husband and wife, because in essence, they could end up taking away her guns and she's done nothing wrong if it was the husband that's got the restraining order or has got something of that nature. But again, they didn't care about logic or reason or any of that. All they cared about was it's just another way to go after our guns to disarm us. Then we had a couple bills like that. Then they've got a bill that says you can't carry an assault firearm in public. And I think it was Pat that pointed out you couldn't even buy one under that bill because as soon as you stepped in the parking lot you're in public, you step into a public parking lot because it's public, it's a business and anybody can drive into the parking lot, you would be breaking the law. And if you had to take it back to get the gun repaired, couldn't do that either. As soon as you stepped out of your car with that gun, you would now be in violation of this no assault rifles in public.
Right.
So
they're also trying to make somebody that you dated once years ago if you had a tiff and yelled or whatever, had any kind of assault, that would fall under that domestic violence umbrella as well. So They're trying to expand the definition of what domestic violence is little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit. And that's a permanent prohibition. There's no way
Yeah.
to get your rights back.
Now, let me say that I have talked to our attorneys on this particular one, and there is actually, if it's something that the federal government doesn't say is domestic violence, which I think this whole thing of somebody I dated, earlier this year and doesn't even live with me, that would be a prohibition of 5 years. I found out this is something I learned recently. I used to think it was a lifetime prohibition, but because what they explained to me was with this particular bill, the bill says 3 years, but the Fed government says 5 years. And they're doing that because, again, because the federal definition doesn't cover somebody you dated. It covers, family members, immediate family members and stuff. So we did, but it's 5 years. The state says 3, and the federal government says, well, tough. It's 5 years for us. That's a long time for somebody you dated at one time or so. They said even cohabitated. So you're going to college and you're sharing a dorm room with somebody.
Yeah.
They're not even somebody that you're in love with, or just somebody you're sharing a room with.
Not
Later on,
even
they get
intimate.
mad. Right. And then next thing you know, they get mad at you, and boom, here we go. This is, of course, the goal, isn't it, Pat? The goal is to disarm us by whatever means they can. So they want to make it so they're just grabbing guns every direction they possibly can and say, yeah, you've got a Second Amendment right, but sadly, you're disqualified because you did X, Y, or Z. And they keep expanding that to make it the whole alphabet.
Which
So,
brings up a really, really important point. For those of you that are members, the Defender will be coming out very soon. And the President's Pen article in there that Philip wrote this quarter talks about how we really, as gun owners from all walks of life and all interests, need to band together. Whether you only care about rifles, or you only care about shotguns, or you are a competitive shooter, or just somebody that has a gun for self-defense, an investor, whatever your interest in firearms is, or just somebody that believes in freedom, we need to work together as a cohesive unit and put aside all of our other differences, because if we don't, then our Second Amendment rights will be lost forever, and the other rights will follow like dominoes.
yeah,
We have
go
we
ahead,
have to
Pat.
understand we have to
Or
understand as well
Joe.
that there are actually 2A defenders out there that do not carry firearms. They out of personal choice. There's not necessarily um a reason of like a fear or anything like that. They just have never. Now granted, I like many of you probably hearing that share the same sentiment of they all need to be educated and have a firearm for protection, but there are people out there that choose not to, whether it be financial reasons or certain reasons within their home that might fall in line with some of these bills that Phillips and Pat are talking about. But at the same time, there are people out there that they don't have like a slew of firearms in their homes. They may have like a little one sitting around, like a little 22 or something like that, just hanging out, not loaded, but whatever. But they still stand with us in defense of the Second Amendment.
What we're trying to do too is get I'll just call it the selfish side of people. And we all have to some degree, have a little side like that. The
Yeah,
side that says, well, this doesn't really affect me. I don't have a concealed carry permit. So I don't care what restrictions they put on concealed carry permit holders.
yeah,
That's the major problem, is that it doesn't affect me. Therefore, I'm not going to get involved. That's the thinking we've got to change,
absolutely.
because if one of your family members is attacked in a violent attack, you don't go, well, he looks like he's about to kill my wife, but he's not killing me, so I'm not going to do anything. That's not how we are. It's like, oh no, you're going after a family member? Oh, hell no. And, out comes the gun and you're out there to protect them. We've got to do the same thing with each other. We're a family. We really are.
Absolutely.
And anyhow, that'll be the thrust. I want to kind of drive this message out and have a campaign going for people to reach out. Those of you that are in hunting clubs, I want to put together a campaign so you have information to share with all of your hunting club members. to get them on board, to get them to understand that even though a gun law doesn't affect hunting, it does affect our liberties, freedoms, and our rights to keep and bear arms. And you never know. Someday you may only be a hunter. You may find yourself saying, boy, I'm sure glad I have a gun for self-defense because my ex-wife just threatened to kill me. Whatever it is.
Mhm.
And then we'll encourage your club members to spread the word to all of the things that they're connected to, like a nuclear chain reaction. You've got all these people putting the word out, and those people, you spread it to 5 people, and those 5 spread it to 5 each. Now you're at 25 people. They spread it to 5 each, and this thing escalates like mad. Now, will everybody get on board? No, but we may well be able to reach a lot of people if we can formulate a good message. And by the way, I'm looking for a name for this effort. Initially I kind of called it the NATO doctrine, NATO number 5 doctrine, where an attack on one member of NATO is an attack on all members. That's what this basically is. You attack my gun rights, that means you're attacking the rights of permit holders, of hunters, of collectors, all that stuff. And then we all stand together. There's so many of us. If we did that, we would be the most powerful voting bloc in the country, bar none, if we could do that.
Maybe the Patriot Doctrine or the 2A Patriot Doctrine or something like that.
Okay.
Kat Schultz pointed out a couple of comments before, and I had it up on the screen. A lot of gun owners are timid. Timid's not a great word. They value their privacy and they want to stay anonymous. But there comes a time when we have to say, I can't stay anonymous anymore for the good of myself, my kids, my great grandkids, and the whole country. I need to speak out and I need to let people know that this is normal. There are millions of us out there. And we are not violent people. We are not abnormal. We're not deranged. We're healthy, normal, everyday people that value freedom and value the security. And we are responsible. We know that we're responsible for the security of our family and our neighborhoods. If not us, then who?
I'll guarantee our founding fathers didn't want to go to war. I guarantee they didn't. But they had to. And they went up against a government that if they had lost that war, they would have been hung. And so would their family members. They were going to be sentenced to death if they lost that war. But they did it anyhow.
Yeah, the difference between a hero and a traitor is what side wins, honestly.
Yeah, that's completely
I'm pretty
correct.
sure over in Britain they still call us traitors, or treasonous. So, yeah.
But and if anybody really thinks that the government has no idea that they're a gun owner, good luck with that. The world has changed with the electronics, all the stuff, all the information out there. If at some point or another you bought ammunition on maybe a credit card or online or whatever, they're going to know. If that's what you're worried about, it's too late. The train's left the station on that kind of stuff.
If it's something as far as I'm about to mess up this word. It's one of those that I can't say. So go anonymity. If you want to stay anonymous,
that's a tough one.
Anonymity. If you want to stay anonymous, I would suggest get on the legislative end and start doing stuff like email campaigns. Help us with our email campaigns. Help us contact legislators through direct communications to their offices. That's a way to get involved. It's not necessarily, hey, I got to go out there and do some door knocking and rile up all of my neighbors and everything like that. Like, hey, guns for everyone. The big difference between us as a community in the 2A and the gun controllers is we're not forcing guns into people's hands. We're not doing that. We're not saying, hey, you're scared. Here's all the guns. You have to keep them. That's the biggest difference. We're not actually trying to push something onto people that is and that doesn't make them comfortable at all. We're standing up for a choice, and while they on the other side like to take that choice away, and that's the big difference with us. And for us to be seen as scary for that, it is just it's beyond me.
We're
I
only
took that
scary if
out
you
of it.
try to take our lives or the lives of our family members. Then we're
Exactly.
scary. Then we're
Then
damn
you'll see
scary.
my bare arms. But yeah,
Right.
that's how it goes.
Well, we'll put any. I want to put together a campaign, so we'll with Pat's help and the board's help and Jill, we'll try to put together some materials, some videos, things that can be shared, handed out. But a lot of you are members of gun clubs. A lot of you are members of ranges. You know, you think a range? Oh, all these gun owners, they should all know about all this stuff. Oh no, no, just
Mhm.
show up at a gun range and say, who's VCDL? And don't be amazed when maybe 2 people out of 10 raise their hands. How is that possible? No idea. But there it is. So that's what we need to fix. Not just, they don't necessarily just have to be members. That's great, especially if they're in Virginia. By the way, we do plan to take this nationwide. I want to get Virginia going as the model, and then I want to spread that out to our counterparts in all the other states, as many as I can reach. And let's just get this whole ball rolling at the federal level as well to get everybody, as many gun owners as possible, as a cohesive team. So it's something we need to think through. I haven't worked out the details yet. I just know I want to do it. We've got to do it. And the time is now. We've got the technology, and you know, we got more gun owners than we've ever had before. So the time is to reach out now. Let's. I guess we can go down a few more of these bills while we're at this. Then they're going after unserialized guns again. They want to make. In fact, the way this bill is written by Senator Eben, you really can't make your own homemade gun because you buy a block of aluminum and you have the machine that goes through and cuts that up into a receiver. Well, at some point you cross the line to where now it's a receiver and it's got to be serialized. Well, how do you get it serialized when it's not even finished or you've crossed that line? It can't be instantly serialized. You've got to go to an FFL. So there'd be almost virtually no way to legally make your own gun and not be potentially caught having put the receiver together and not have a serial number on it yet. But they don't care. Again, don't think that we could go back and fix the bill. Oh no, I don't want to fix the bill. The bill's bad. The concept's bad. We need to kill it. But again, it's not. They don't care. The Democrats don't care that this is unworkable. That it goes way beyond what they claim it will. They're fine with that. They don't want you to have guns. They don't want me to have guns. They don't want Pat or Jill to have guns. They don't want any of that. So they're more than happy if they overreach. At the same time, they'll look you in the eye and go, "Nobody wants to take your guns." It's where do they find these people? I don't know where they find them.
Well, they want serialized guns because that's a pathway to confiscation.
Yeah.
And that is the only purpose that it serves as far as the government is concerned. As far as you and I are concerned, serialized guns could potentially help reunite someone with a stolen or lost firearm.
Yes.
But as far as the record keeping that the FFLs have to do and the government traces don't solve crimes. They don't. That is a myth perpetuated by the people that want to confiscate guns eventually, and it's a pathway to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a useless tool for law enforcement, other than maybe slight chance that if somebody is making straw purchases, they have a way to prove that.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the only crime that it's going to solve. But you
Yeah.
still have to prove that they intentionally purchased that for somebody that was a prohibited person.
Yeah, it's not about that again, as you say, Pat.
Right.
They just want to take guns away, and that's it. Don't think they want to solve crime. They don't care about crime. I can guarantee that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this year they tried to take repeat violent offenders and use firearms for violent means, rape, robbery, murder. that have already been to prison once and are out, and they've done it again or again. The Republicans wanted to give them 10 years in prison, get them off our streets, away from us, away from our children. Democrats said, oh, no, we don't want to do that. So they want crime. Let's be clear about that. And I don't, they can say whatever they want. They want the crime. They want to drive up the rate because that's their excuse to disarm us. That's all they care about. They don't give a damn about saving lives. This is about disarming us.
Yeah, that might be behind Marsden's bill to make you keep your gun on
In
the
the
seat
open.
when you have to leave it in your car because you have to go into DMV, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, we
Yeah.
get too many stolen guns. We need more gun control. Well, those
Yes.
of you that have binary triggers would be interested in the next one. This bill by Senator Perry, I think she's from Loudoun, if I'm not mistaken. It might be Prince William. I'm not sure. It's up in that neck of the woods. She wants to get rid of something called a trigger activator, which she put in binary trigger. Basically, they said anything that you add to the gun except a new trigger group that just simply is maybe a lighter trigger or whatever. Anything other than that makes your gun fire faster than a semi-automatic gun can fire. Anything that speeds it up faster than you could fire under normal conditions would then be illegal, no matter what it was, whether it's a binary trigger or something that hasn't even been invented yet. I will point out that Jerry Mikulik, I clocked him. He fired 6 shots in 1 second. So that means with his trigger finger and nothing else, he can go 360 rounds a minute.
He is
Okay.
enemy number one.
And I will, if this were to pass, I'll go make my video again. I'll make a better one where I will bump fire an AR and bump fire an AK with nothing else on just a plain old semi-auto, all fired just by how I hold the gun. And we can also clock how many rounds per minute I can generate just with my bare hands. And then they're going to have stuff like that because the law says it's got to exceed what you can do with just the plain gun. So we'll show them what one of these guns can do if you've got somebody that's really good or somebody that's bump firing just using their bare hands or maybe the loop on their pants. But I'm not even going to bother with the loop on the belt loop. I'm just going to do it with my bare hands. But hopefully the governor will veto this. But this is where we're going with this stuff.
Going back to what you were saying earlier about where they come up with this stuff, I mean, hearing that one especially, I wonder if they just throw gun verbiage on a firearms verbiage all over a wall and just spin around really quick and then point. Because that is exactly what that one and the one about open carry, you have to, store your firearms openly, even though it's already a law in place where you shouldn't. It's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll lose your mind. Jill, you'll lose your mind if you apply
bless
logic
y'all.
or reason. Okay,
Bless y'all for what y'all do.
no logic or reason to this. You will go nuts because it
Just for our
isn't there.
listeners and watchers, this is why I don't lobby because I would never a straight face in that courtroom. I would be all to pieces.
Pat and I are constantly looking at each other in committee like, oh, here we go again. It's
I
like,
would
what?
snort, laugh, and just
Yeah.
lose it.
That's hard to be quiet when they're doing this.
can't
And
tell
it's
you.
so hard.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times Philip and I look at each other and say, "Did they just say that? That really came out of their mouth?" So yeah,
I get comments all the time. When we do these lives, Jill, how many facial expressions, have you made tonight? I saw all these, and I'm like, I just think about it now, being in one of those meetings with y'all.
oh,
Yeah,
one of the did he just say that when we were talking with Marsden about his not being able to conceal a gun in a car unless you have a CHP. He said he was in law enforcement. He knows there were no guns stolen out of cars in Virginia before the law was passed that you didn't need a permit to conceal the gun in your car.
in 2010, he said, yeah, before then we didn't have any gun thefts of
Yeah,
cars.
we didn't have any gun thefts out of cars in 2010. It didn't happen. Wait, what?
I know, right? That's exactly. I
And
could see myself now. Just he would not.
yeah,
I would shake his hand and walk away.
Yeah, and I told him the law now requires that your gun be in a closed and latched compartment or
Yeah,
container. And he says,
not
"Oh, but you
stuffed
can just
between the
cram your."
seats.
He says you can
Mhm.
cram the gun between the seats, between the seat and the console, and that's a container. And then I
Um,
pointed out to the
no,
committee. I said, "No, a judge said it's got to have a latch on the container. There's no latch when you cram your gun down between." I said, "That's if you do that, you're going to jail because that's
Yeah,
not the
because
law."
the pockets. I mean, there's so many. I have students that come to where officers or their legal counsel have suggested before they go before a judge to get their license as well as their concealed carry with if it's a gun charge. I don't know what it's called right off the top of my head at the moment, but where they have put the firearm in the pocket in the door, and they have been they get charged for that
Yeah,
because
no latch,
it's
no
no
right.
latch.
latch on it. So I
It's
mean,
not a secured container.
exactly.
Right.
So
But
I,
there are also here's the big problem. There are still tons of people out there that don't have concealed handgun permits that don't know
mhm,
that they can legally today conceal their firearm in their car in a secure container
that's right.
without a permit, including law enforcement officers. And there are people that the cops have actually harassed
Hmm.
because they weren't up to speed on that law.
Yep.
And there are people that leave their guns out visible because they don't know that they can conceal it in the vehicle and they don't have a permit. So I have suggested the last 2 years in these committee meetings that they take that money that would have been allocated for that bill and educate the public on leaving firearms in vehicles and the importance of locking the vehicles. Education is a lot more valuable than passing a law that more people are not going to know about.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, and stepping up on the next one. By the way, Pat, you're a ventriloquist right now because your screen's frozen. I can hear you, but your lips aren't moving.
All right, I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. So the next one I want to talk about is one now they want to require a 5-day waiting period when you go to buy a gun. Okay, so we have what's called the Virginia Instant Check System. Now, what does instant mean to you? When you think of instant, like instant coffee, is that something you make and you have to wait 5 days before it's
Yeah.
ready? I'm pretty sure that's not what instant means.
Yeah.
But the instant coffee doesn't take 5 days. Well, they want this instant check to make you wait 5 days before you can pick up your gun. So take it by the gun shows because you buy a gun at the gun show, but you have to wait 5 days. By then, the show is over. So if you want your gun, you got to drive wherever that dealer was that sold you the gun. People probably are just not going to do that.
Mm-mm.
And of course, again, do they care? Do they care that they're going to hurt gun? Oh, no, they don't care. They want to get rid of gun shows. So this is a perfect excuse to say, oh, yeah, we've got to do this because I need a cooling off period. And of course we don't. But that's again, over and over. That's not the point. They want to take your guns away. So don't ever think that well, we could work out something. What about 2 days? No, it's an instant check. That's what we were promised when we went over to that system. Was okay, people in Virginia, it's okay. Gun owners, you'll still be able to get your gun the same day. You may have to wait 5 minutes. Big deal, but that lets us check everybody. So they put that in place. Now you flash forward. Now they're reneging. They want to take that back and make you wait 5 days. So again, we want that's ridiculous, and we're fighting that. But that is alive, and probably will go to the governor's desk. There's a good chance that all this stuff is probably going to end up on the governor's desk. They got bills to say you can't carry in a hospital. They modified them so that a doctor might be able to get permission, or somebody else that works at the hospital could get permission to carry a gun.
Eighty
They're
percent.
trying.
80% of my students are medical people that
Then the
work in
odds of getting
hospitals,
that are
and
slim.
they they all the time talk about when I have just recently I had a student talking about how he is always in the emergency room when the police bring in a suspect. And he's a young guy, you know. He's like, he just got married and has kids, and he thinks about that. He says he cannot not think about it. He wants to treat the people. They have to treat the people all the same, but he says that he just it with everything going on in society and in this world, he says he that's all he can think about. And he
Yeah.
says he prays during those moments. And I was like,
Ju-
well,
But the courts in New York have said that a hospital is not a sensitive government building. It's not sensitive government, and they've said that. They struck down a law in New York that banned guns in hospitals. So this is not, and I think it's clearly not constitutional.
no.
Hospitals were never banned from carrying in a hospital. So, but there's a bill in that will probably head to these will probably all head to the governor's desk. Some have passed both bodies already. Others are almost guaranteed to pass because they passed last year. Um, and if you've got somebody under 18 in your home, then again, they want you to, again, to have your gun locked up. Otherwise, or a person that's a prohibited person. Your gun's got to be locked up if you're not carrying it on you. And also they put in restrictions on cars that are ridiculous. For example, you have to have a gun safe in your car. This bill says, and the gun safe has to be not visible, and the gun safe has to be attached. Doesn't say how, what attached means to your car. And some cars, there's no way to have a gun safe in there that's hidden. That's just the
Most
design of the car.
SUVs, yeah,
Yeah, where do you
most
put it?
SUVs, there's absolutely no place to put a gun safe that is out of sight.
Mm-mm.
And with the automatic seats these days and everything, there's nowhere that you can do that. The way cars are built, it's just not possible. So it's astounding the games that they're playing. These bills are coming up in committee, and they will not take testimony if it's a bill that they heard the same thing last year. They just won't allow testimony. Whether you have something new to say or not, whether there's new facts to be presented or not, they will not allow public comment other than maybe commenting online. And even that link is not up a lot in the Senate. They will take the bills and they'll say, is this the same bill as last year? Okay, move to report and refer to finance. And it's party line votes and runs out the door. So it's like I said to somebody earlier this week, it's like being on Casey Jones's train and no way to get off.
Yep.
We're railroaded
Yeah.
basically. And so this year, Governor Youngkin has said, if you send me the same bills again, I'm going to veto them again. There's mostly are the same. There's a few new ones we hope he will also veto. But next year is going to be vital for the future of Virginia and our country.
And the election, though, is this year. For next year is when, yeah. So this
Absolutely.
this November is a
This
big
November.
deal. It's a very big deal.
The entire House of Delegates, the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general are all up for election. So, a lot of people didn't show up for lobby day. They went to the Trump inauguration, and that's fine and dandy. And we're all glad that Kamala didn't get into office, but the major gun control comes through on the state level. So, there's some on the federal level, but that covers all the states. But where we have the most control is at the state level. And it's really, really important to get your state legislature comprised of people that will support your rights.
Yep.
And looking at a few more things. Remember the old "we don't want to take your guns," right? They've been saying that for a long time. Oh no, we don't want to take your guns. No, we just want reasonable gun control. Well, again, lying to our faces. We got bills by Senator Deeds from the Charlottesville area, that does exactly that. It says any quote unquote assault weapon made after July 1 of this year is illegal. Unless, of course, you're the government. That's okay. But boy, if you're a citizen that the government serves, forget it. You don't count. None of that if it's after July 1 of this year, and no magazines that hold more than 10 rounds after that. Now, they let you keep what you've already got until next year when they put in a bill that takes that away, of course. This is one of these things where they do it step at a time. Again, cooking the frog by slowly turning up the heat. They'll come back and get the guns that you think you're going to be able to hang on to if he gets his way. No, they don't want to take your guns. BS. That's exactly what this is doing. This is taking away guns. And even if, like, I've got I've got some of those. Yeah, maybe I would get to keep them. But what about the next generation? What about the people that are turning 18 in July or 21 in July? What about them? They're buying their first rifle. They won't be able to buy one of these. The rifles I have, I won't be able to give them. I won't be able to sell them. And so when I pass away, then they're all contraband. So again, they do want to take our guns. And when they tell you that, just point them to this kind of bill. Yes, you do want to take our guns. And yes, you are trying to take them away. But they'll continue to lie about it, but it's right there. And at colleges, that's another one. Right now, it's not a state law that you can't carry in a college or a university that's run by the state. Private is separate, but for a state-owned, it's not illegal. But you could be expelled. You could be charged with trespass if you're told that you can't have a gun in the building and you still have it. But basically, if you get out, then you wouldn't have a charge. But they want to make it illegal now, where only the people that are specifically exempted for certain things can have a gun on the public campus. So that's another bill Deeds is putting in. There was a time when Deeds was very good on guns. It's just I don't know. It's morphed into just another gun controller like the rest
Yeah,
of them.
it's money. A lot of people are bringing it up in the comments. It does have a lot to do with money. If you go back into Joe Biden, for example, his past, he was supported by the NRA. I mean, he was very, very pro-gun at one point. And then all of a sudden, I mean, just you hear that have this slew of gun control groups and organizations come out, and and I'm sure Philip is going to get into it in just a minute, but they're funneling money between one another and they're making millions and billions off of it. So, of course, some of these legislators just follow that. They follow the money more than more than they do actual morals and
Yeah, I think Bloomberg and Soros had them like little dancing dolls on the end of
yes.
strings,
Oh yeah.
and the money strings. There's almost no doubt about it. They also have a bill that'll let people do frivolous lawsuits against the gun industry, and not just the people making firearms, but people even doing accessories. So if you sold a gun stock to somebody as a dealer, and that gun stock ended up in a criminal's hands, you could be sued civilly for not being careful enough to keep that out of the hands of a criminal. A gun stock or a sling or, a magazine or whatever. Again, not just going after dealers, going after anybody that's got anything to do with the firearms industry. That's
Right. I mean,
again,
that could even be 3-in-1 oil that you buy at Walmart and use it to clean your gun. Which don't use 3-in-1 oil, by the way, but
no.
um, but you get my drift. You
Yeah.
can buy Marvel Mystery Oil at Walmart and use it to clean something on your gun, and then something happens with that firearm, and Walmart could get prosecuted. That's how
Up the
ludicrous
line.
that law is.
Yep.
And the
Oh, yeah.
other games that we've seen them play is that, of course, they're killing all the Democrats are killing pretty much all the Republican bills, no matter how good they are. But what they'll do is, if it's a good bill, they'll get a Democrat to also put in the same bill, kill the Republican bill, and then push the Democrat bill through. So that's we still do have a gutted version of the bill that would help get trauma first aid kits in the schools.
Okay.
but it has it no longer mandates that there be any people in the school trained to use them. So, and the argument was, well, I'm sure they come with instruction manuals. So if somebody's bleeding out and you need to put a tourniquet on, you can just open the pamphlet and read how to use the tourniquet real quick.
I know you're
And
dying, but let me read
yes,
this real quick.
and just hope it's not the femoral artery and they bleed out in 10 seconds and it takes you 30 seconds to read the instructions.
I can
So
see it
yeah,
now. I have to pinch that.
uh-huh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and under extreme stress, you may not even be able to absorb what you're reading.
absolutely.
Exactly. I just, uh, I'm
I don't. It's not the way to learn how to
stupidity.
do something.
The stupidity.
Well,
That's all it is.
and they've got a bill to mimic what the White House used to have until Trump got in. You know, the what did they call it? The something about gun violence com, committee to prevent gun violence or something like that. It was a White House
Hmm.
thing. Trump
Bless.
knocked that off immediately. That sucker was gone the first day.
I know I'm not 100% MAGA by any means, but bless Trump for
Yeah,
that.
that was a
I
good
watched
one.
it. I watched it. It was great.
Well, there's an equivalent bill for Virginia that would make the same thing in
So
Virginia. So I'm hoping that our governor will look at it the same way that Trump looked at it and said, no, no way. Because again, they're not focused on violence. They don't care about violence. They care about gun violence. And the only reason they care about gun violence is the word gun. So they're looking for ways to, again, to take guns away. They don't want to take away knives or blunt objects or anything else. That's not their interest. And so that's why this is a gun violence prevention uh, uh,
so
whatever,
stupid.
committee or whatever they're creating. So hopefully we can knock that down. How many of you enjoy carrying out of state when you travel, like North Carolina or South Carolina? How many? I think everybody can raise their hands. Well, Delegate Helmer, who loves to tout that he was in the military, but somehow must not have realized that the military is protecting our Constitution. I think he missed that completely. He didn't think it had anything to do with the Constitution. He's put in a bill that would severely restrict the states that honor Virginia, because we would restrict the states that we honor. Right now, we honor all of them. He would knock that way back. So we'd lose a whole bunch of reciprocity. Right now, you can carry in 38 states. When he's done with you, you'll be lucky to be able to carry in half of that, and that's those states. So that's Delegate Helmer. He's well, I don't know. I don't want to go any further with that. I just don't understand the man. Um,
Helmer's a dirty word.
yeah,
I
pretty much.
mean, I'm yeah.
So I'm doing a quick glance here. They want to expand the area where you have to be away from a polling place. We've never had a problem at a polling place with people legally carrying guns when they go to vote, but that can no logic, no reason needs to be there. It's all about finding ways to disarm us every way they can. And polling places, they want to move it from 40 feet outside the building to 100 feet outside the building. Why? Because they can. And I'm sure next time it'll be 500 feet. Next time it'll be 1,000 feet. Next time it'll be anywhere in the same universe. So
I see that happening for some reason.
yeah, something is always funny when there's an element of truth to it. That's
Well,
that.
that's exactly right.
And then they got a bill that it's part of the bill that says that you have to lock up guns if you've got somebody under 18 or if you got a prohibited person. Then they've got a word verbiage that every gun store has to have that supposedly represents that law. But the verbiage they want totally misrepresents the law that they passed. The verbiage that they're going to be teaching people in gun stores and everything else doesn't mention that if the gun is on you, you don't need to have it locked up just because there's a 14-year-old in the home or there's a prohibited person, as long as you're in control. But that doesn't mention that. And that's a big deal. It doesn't mention that the gun can be loaded if it's in the safe or whatever, anything like mostly gun safes. If it's in there, you can have it loaded. They don't mention that. They say what the verbiage they have says it's got to be unloaded and locked up. So they give you part of the story, the part that really misleads you as to what your rights are under the law. That's how bad this stuff is. It really is. You lose all respect for people that do this stuff because it's dirty, it's underhanded, it's un-American. I'm sorry. This is a civil right, and they're messing with it, and they're lying to us about it. They're lying to our faces about what they want to do. And
Absolutely.
we have to stand up and fight. Just keep fighting back. I'm not putting up with this baloney. We need to keep fighting as hard as we can because we're really dealing with some underhanded people in this.
So self-preservation and self-determination, meaning you decide your own future, are basic human rights. It's called freedom, and they're not just basic human rights. These are things every living creature has a right to preserve its own survival. It's just the natural way. And when you have criminals that have guns and you have tyrants that have guns, then you need to have guns to defend yourself from the bad people who would steal your rights or steal your life. And that's just the way it is.
Yep.
So I was looking in the comments, and one of them, I'm not sure what this is. It was from Miss Gina Tree. It says, that's wrong, Phil. Anybody got an idea what she's saying was wrong, or she's just saying that the law was wrong?
I don't know, Gina, type in the comments, please. I wanted to go back early on tonight. We had a comment that I starred. Let me find it. It was about Trump's executive order. And here we go. So Tom Jefferson said Trump's executive order protecting Second Amendment is good, but keep an eye on Pam Bondi. She has a history of supporting red flag laws. Maybe she has repented, but keep the pressure on your representatives. Absolutely. And Philip, I'm pretty sure you wanted to talk a little bit about Trump's executive order tonight, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, and on that one, I will say too that Trump has been making all the right moves right now. He's done the Second Amendment Protection Act or Protection Executive Order that he put in is really significant. I had it in the alert that went out over the weekend. Very significant what he did, and some of it may be a little subtle for some people, but there's a key part in there. And the key part is that he wants the Department of Justice to look at every outstanding lawsuit on guns that the government is fighting to see if that law violates the Second Amendment. And the implication is if it does, then the government should back out and say, you know what? We the person suing over bump stocks they did, but over arm braces is right. It is unconstitutional to ban those. And then they back out, and then bam, we're good. The ATF stops trying to fight those because the ATF is told by the Department of Justice, hey, I'm sorry, guys, it's unconstitutional. Too bad. Stop. So if he does that, if indeed they do find and agree that a whole bunch of this stuff is unconstitutional, we could see some major wins in court coming up.
Yeah.
Major. Without having to go to the Supreme Court. That's huge. That speeds stuff up dramatically. So, and there were some other things that he put in there but that was one of the major ones. I mean, my eyes lit up when I saw that one because the implications are massive. But the other point I wanted to make here was Pam Bondi's boss is Trump. So if she wants to suddenly push red flag and he's the one to say that's repented on it, then she's probably not going to be told not to do that by him. So, but we do have to keep an eye on her. We've seen plenty of videos of her talking, and she doesn't seem well grounded in civil rights when it comes to gun rights.
So we need to keep our eye on both of them and all of them.
Yeah.
regardless of how supportive, friendly, on your side somebody is, every once in a while they can do something that can be extremely detrimental. And we see this in the Virginia legislature.
Mm.
There are times when Philip has to call up one of the senators or delegates and say, "Do you know what this bill really does? And just giving you a heads up, we're going to strongly oppose it if you put this through in this form." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that it did that." Or in some cases they stand by what it is that they've introduced.
Or yeah, and sometimes they maybe they've got good intentions, but they put in a bill where I'm going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What was your goal when you put this mess in?
Our
And we had that this year. It was like, have you shifted over to the dark side? Why are you putting in a gun control bill? What do you mean
our
gun control bill?
our purpose as voters and as the common citizenry, or whatever you want to call it, is to hold those that we vote for accountable to what we want them to be, what we voted for them for. And for us just to vote them in and then say, okay, they're going to do what we say now. And
Yeah, no, you
there's
can't do that.
you can't do that. Even you can love them, you can have all the pictures with them and go to all the rallies and everything like that, but still, in that same sense, I mean, if they do something that you don't agree with, or there's talk of it, question them, call the
Yeah,
offices, email them, hold them accountable,
yeah,
because it's not just a one and done situation. I think somebody else brought it up in the comments too. We have 4 years with Trump. After that, we have we have a major, a big thing. It's going to be big. Same thing for what's happening here in Virginia as far as our upcoming elections with governor, lieutenant governor, as well as the AG. I mean, we have to fill those seats with gun rights people. And in that same process, we need to hold those that we do vote for accountable to what they say that they're going to stand for, which is the rights of the Virginians, of the whole nation. So
yeah. And
I just
go ahead, Joe.
no, I'm just I see that a whole lot in, especially on social media, and I know that people get riled up and everything, and you talk one way about a politician that somebody, it's almost like a sports team. Don't talk evil about you. I just found out that Kansas and Philly are playing, or Philadelphia are playing this evening. I'm not a foosball watcher, but and you talk bad about either team, and it's constant, like back and forth. But at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, so if your legislator tells you that you really, really support, tells you to jump off a bridge, are you going to do it? you
Right.
know,
You
I
know,
mean, there's no pushback. I mean, I don't get
they're
it.
they're human like we are. I know I've come a long way. I've had people, in the organization, other board members over the years. I mean, I've been in president since 2001. I've come a long way in some of these things. I too sometimes was a little short-sighted on liberty, and I had people in this organization that helped expand my view, and I know I've expanded other people's views. Um,
Absolutely.
we all come in with certain prejudices about freedom and liberty and what's good and what's bad and all that. But opening up and truly understanding liberty was something that over the years, I've expanded and expanded and expanded. And sometimes the politician just is given bad information or hasn't thought it through properly, doesn't have all the facts. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, but you got to watch them because, again, I might have done something early on that wasn't as good for liberty as it should have been. And you need somebody there to catch you and go, whoa, 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 Phil, you need to think about this and that.
Right.
And
And that's why we have a board of directors, and we have executive members that participate in the decision making. They give us input when we're maybe struggling with something or considering a new path or anything like that. I've been watching a conversation in the chat box here, and thank you guys for putting this in, because we are a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy. And we know among ourselves that a democracy is three wolves and a lamb voting on what's for dinner.
Yeah.
But a constitutional republic has rules and checks and balances. And that's why our founding fathers set up our government system the way that it did, with the checks and the balances. The problem comes when the general public, including the legislators, and Philip and I see this repeatedly with people on the committees saying that, referring to our democracy and we keep reminding them that it is not a democracy, it is not mob rule. But we as a group need to educate the public on the difference between a democracy and a republic, a constitutional republic, and why. And we need to ourselves participate in the government and convince the people that we talk to participate in the government. And part of that is voting in all elections, including primaries and things like that, and helping to select people to run for office, encouraging people that believe in freedom and understand the concept of a constitutional republic, and getting those people to run for office, being a part of it, going to school board meetings, or at least monitoring what they said in the school board meeting. Pretty much every meeting has a recorded version online now. It's very rare that they don't. So it's a pain. I understand that. I get that. But if we don't participate, then we don't have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We have a dictatorship, or somebody ruling over us instead of us being a part of the ruling body.
And that's what they
So
want. And that's what our opposition wants. They want us to be complacent, and exactly
right.
what Pat was saying.
Yeah, otherwise you're giving up, you're just throwing away the power that you have to affect your own government.
Yep.
You're letting
Yes.
somebody else do it for you, and that's not probably going to work out the way you planned.
Yes. If you let
Yeah,
somebody else make your choices for you, you're probably not going to like what they pick.
yeah,
So
and
Husky
you want to
Mom
look at,
says our only protector we have is ourselves. Stay active in your own community and state.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
yeah, the only person that cares about you the most is going to be you and your family. That's it. You
Hmm.
know, the government doesn't, they don't really care about you as an individual. No.
Well, that's
They
pretty
talk a
obvious.
good game, but just ask the poor people in North Carolina, especially those people that had a Trump sign in their yard and were totally ignored because politically by the government.
Yeah.
That, you know, no matter who's in charge, that can always still happen. And you know, it's nice that the government can come help you, but if you're counting on that, that's tough. You know, be
Hmm.
prepared to be disappointed. So I, you know, highly recommend that, you know, and most gun owners are pretty independent. We really are. And that's part of our own downfall there, because we're too independent. We don't want, you know, we figure we'll take care of ourselves no matter what happens, but you really don't want to have to do that. You want everything to go smoothly in your life. You don't want to have to be in a position where you're now having to use your emergency food supplies because the world is going to hell. You don't want to have to do that. And
Yes,
to avoid having to do that requires
being
being active.
independent is great, and being independent and having a bunch of independent, strong people can make it harder for them to work together as a cohesive unit. But the key to survival, I mean, we have civilizations because people band together.
Mhm.
And they do that because they have a much greater chance of surviving when they band together and work as a unit. Because I can't do everything. You can't do everything, but I may be able to do some things that you can't do, and vice versa. So when we join together, we can say, hey, Joe, I don't have time to keep an eye on the school board meeting next week. Can you handle that one? And I'll take the board of supervisors meeting this week. And we can work together to keep an eye on what our local governments are doing, and work together to keep an eye on what our state governments are doing. And the state is our firewall from the federal government. They are there to protect us from overreach from the federal government. So,
And after 9/11, the whole nation came together
mhm,
for a while. For a while, all of our other political differences were set aside because we felt a threat to the nation. We didn't know where that was going to go. We had no idea what the next level might have been. As we know, looking back on it, 2020 hindsight is the standard for hindsight. But at that time, we didn't know, and people set aside everything else because we realized that for our society to survive under what could be some kind of a massive attack, we needed to bond together, and everything else was irrelevant at that time. And eventually, we realized that the threat was just very minimal, then we started separating out again and worrying about other things. But that whole idea that Pat's bringing up, that we're in essence we're used to being a tribe, a group of people that come together, each person with their own ability to give something to the group, that makes the whole thing work. We
And
all interdepend on
be,
each other.
yes, and be aware that the other side will try to divide and conquer. They will use divisive things like race or gender bias or any number of things to keep the gun owners as a whole from banding together. Like I said at the beginning, we are from all walks of life, and we need to put aside the differences that we have to come together as a cohesive unit, that the Second Amendment is the most important thing to protect in order to protect the freedom that we enjoy in this country.
To
And
make your oh sorry
go ahead.
to make your point, Pat, when you look back on gun control, maybe 20, 30 years ago, even, they were saying, nobody wants your hunting shotgun, because they were trying to divide the hunters, which is a big block of people. There's a
Hmm.
lot of hunters out there across the country. They didn't want to get them involved in gun control. So, oh no, we don't want to touch your hunting shotgun. No, we just want common sense gun control for these cheap handguns coming in from Europe or whatever it is. That was
Right.
an example of exactly that, dividing us
Well, the cheap
intentionally.
handguns were, they used racial prejudice and said, you have these minorities, these poor minorities that are taking these cheap handguns in a paper bag and going out and robbing liquor stores. And that was how they got that ban passed back in the 60s. And they actually used racial prejudice to get that gun control through. It it was, and before that, the permitting process was to keep freed slaves from owning
Yeah.
guns and protecting themselves against the KKK. So if you look back on all of the gun control that's been passed, they repeatedly use this over and over and over again. They take a segment of the population and demonize them and make people afraid of them. They use your fear against you.
Hitler
So
did that, didn't he?
absolutely.
He did that to the
Absolutely.
Jews. He didn't take guns
Hmm.
away from Germans, the
No,
normal Germans. He took them away from the Jews. He demonized them, created a fake event that made it look like the Jews were creating all kinds of crime. Used that. Does that sound familiar? Using crime as an excuse to disarm somebody. Does that sound familiar? And
right.
then he
And
disarmed the Jews, and well, we know where it went from there.
and so you fast forward to today, and you have the same people that are pushing this gun control agenda that are also pushing bills for early parole, early release from jail, violent criminals reducing penalties or not increasing penalties, making it harder to keep violent criminals in jail, all sorts of things like that that will increase crime, keep
Oh yeah.
making you keep your gun visible on the seat of your car when you have to go into DMV because they've made it a defense-free zone. And I mean, when what they're doing doesn't make sense logically, you have to re-examine the premise. And so the only thing that actually does make sense is they want to increase crime so they have an excuse to disarm good people.
And
So, so they have no. Go
with
ahead, Jill.
all of this, I'm sorry, with all of this happening, I mean, y'all speaking about this, I believe I tagged Philip in it on X. Maxwell
Hmm.
Frost, who is a March for Our Lives volunteer, or one of those little March for Our Lives guys who stepped up into politics in Florida. He posted a picture of himself and some other March for Our Lives members in Virginia during the VCDL lobby day, the big VCDL lobby day of almost a handful of years ago, that I was at. That I left my almost 2 year old at home, felt perfectly safe doing that, to come and hang out with a bunch of gun toting, hooting and hollering folks. And they claim in this post that was back from 2020 that we we as gun extremists threatened these kids, that they had to go into Helmer, one was it Helmer's office, to hide out from us because we were threatening their lives. So that is the image that these kids and gun controllers are actually promoting of us. And I'm sitting there and I'm reading this as a mother. And I'm like, I was busy cleaning up stickers off of the ground with a scraper that some VCDL member came around and said, "Here, go ahead. You want help?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do this," and helping with trash bags. And then I kept thinking to myself, I was like, this is ridiculous, because here we are, we're living in a day and age where there were thousands upon thousands of people at that rally, and not a soul was hurt. It was so peaceful. I met so many people from so many different walks of life. I stood beside a BLM member for about 30 minutes of it and had the best chat that I've had with anyone in my entire life. And then these same kids from March for Our Lives, who also promote other organizations like BLM, are promoting this negative image of us as gun owners. They're calling us gun extremists, which is just beyond me. But I think to myself, I'm like, this is the same prohibition that, exactly like what somebody in the thing in the comments brought up Stalin. Uh, Philip brought up Hitler. Just it just it's just I'm mind blown that that is the talking point now. That is the image that we are being, like,
Well,
seeing
the
in
way,
person. I'm just like a mom,
and
That's
that's
all.
but they need this. They don't have logic or reason on their side, so all they can do is lie, distort, and turn somebody into a villain that's not a villain, just by saying stuff like that, stuff they could never prove because there were no threats. That was the most peaceful thing, and nobody, 50,000 people, not one arrest, not one problem. Richmond was cleaner, but they lie about us because they don't have anything else. All they can do is try to make us look scary. And so there, there it goes. And I noticed the comment that went up there. Michael Dalton, basically, yeah, the greatest uniter is a single common enemy. And again, that's very true. And indeed, that's what happened in the early days of 9/11. And again, once that enemy's defeated, then everybody says, okay, we're done. But the
Yep,
world is never done with you. You may be done with the world, but they're going to come at everybody. Yeah, but most people.
yep, yep.
And yeah, well, that's part of the separation of the government, the different bodies. the courts rule certain ways, but that doesn't mean that the legislature can't put in something that's unconstitutional. But again, the check and balance is that the courts will then get involved and they will nullify something that's unconstitutional. Unfortunately, there's no law that says if they knowingly pass an unconstitutional law or bill into law that they're put in jail or they're fined or whatever. So that's the problem. It's a checks and balances kind of thing. So the Democrats just, I mean, I guess in theory, a bill could be put in to re-enslave black people. And if it somehow managed to pass into law, Supreme Court would just strike it down, or the lower courts, any of the courts would strike that down. But in theory, they could pass such a bill again. That wouldn't happen. 66%, or two-thirds. Yeah. Mm. A lot of them. Yeah, they did a great job. By the way, Pat, we're getting messages that I'm the only one that can be heard.
Can y'all hear me?
Can you hear? Can you hear Jill? Wrenchhead, would you let me know if you on the chat if you hear Jill? Go ahead, Jill. Say something.
Hi.
Yeah. Then their their quarter is running out. You need to put more money in the
Jill is
machine
there,
there,
yeah.
Pat.
I mute
Jill
myself
is
sometimes.
there. Here's Jill. How about you, Pat?
I heard Pat.
Yeah, me too, but that doesn't mean. Yeah, now Jill. So, yeah, they're hearing you, Jill.
Okay. Sometimes I mute myself, so if I
Ah,
made a noise or looked like I was talking, I was probably just
all right, Pat. Yes, when you're ready, Pat, say something. We'll see if they can confirm.
Pat looks frozen.
Oh no, not to me. Okay, that's interesting.
Nice.
I could probably fake that.
Did the
Frozen, do the frozen thing.
poor Matt. Poor no, Pat. I can.
Waiting on a wrench head
Uh,
or Miss Gina. Miss Gina or
well,
wrench head. Can you hear Pat?
Pat Pat was talking about where she looked frozen, and y'all probably couldn't hear her, is if you are not a GOA or Gun Owners of America member, please consider doing that because they have helped tremendously, especially with this new presidential term, of getting the right info in the right hands, as well as with the VCDL and a lot of legislative and legal. They've been in the courtroom a lot. If y'all look at if you go to the VCDL website, you can actually catch up with what she was talking about. Also, if you are not a member of Legal Shield, that would also be something. They've been very supportive of the VCDL with the if y'all called all that.
As long as you.
If you didn't,
Okay, Pat.
Okay.
Pat,
sorry, yeah,
try
Law
it
Shield.
again.
Sorry, Law Shield.
Go ahead,
Better
Pat.
now? Can you hear me now? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me.
So I don't know
Philip,
if
can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
I can
Okay.
too.
So if you can hear Pat, or if you can't hear Pat, either way, let us know. Okay, they got you now.
Yay!
5x5 even. That's
Woohoo!
woo.
Okay. Yeah, so what I was saying was that GOA has matched dollar for dollar on the lawsuits. And if you're not a member of GOA, go over to gunowners.org and join, as well as you should be a member of VCDL if you're not already. And I don't know if it came through what I was saying about U.S. Law Shield and the buses. Did you go over that
Jill
again?
kind of filled everybody in while you were rebooting there.
Okay.
And GOA is going to have their
Horribly done.
goals conference again this year, like they did last year. This will be their second conference,
Mhm.
and it'll be in Knoxville again. I think it was like September or something like that. I don't have the date in front of me, but you might
Yeah.
keep your eyes open for that. That was a lot of fun, and if you don't mind, and Knoxville's not too far away. And those of you that live in Western Virginia, it's not bad at all. I
Right.
think it's like
Beautiful drive. It was a beautiful drive for me.
It
I liked
is.
it.
All right. We are at 20 after 9. So if you guys have anything else that you want to cover, let's get it out there now. Because we've kept people already for almost an hour and a half.
yeah, we're going to have our regular monthly face-to-face meeting again at XCal. So that'll be coming up. When was it?
The 20th,
The 20th. So if you're up in
Thursday the
Loudon
20th.
or Fairfax, up in Northern Virginia, you want to come to a live meeting, we'll be at XCal. Meeting starts at
Mhm.
8. If you get there early, they have a range. You can get $5 off renting a range. Beautiful ranges up there, very nice. The
Mhm.
whole complex is gorgeous.
Yep.
So come
And
join us. So
we actually got to I got to shoot there one time. If I bring ammo, we hit traffic jams and don't get there early enough to shoot. So it's up to Philip to bring the ammo from now on. And that's not an
Smart.
excuse, I promise.
well, I'm getting the short end of that
That's
deal.
smart. Smart. Oh, that's
How about
awesome.
if I bring the ammo and the gun and you just watch?
I shoot it's dead traffic.
you,
Nothing.
you're afraid I'll beat you. That's what it is. Yeah. So yeah, come the 20th. We're also working on locations around the state, setting up a meeting schedule so that we are represented each month in a different location. We'll be at XCal, what, 3 or 4 times over
Yeah,
the
about
year?
once a
And
quarter. And once a quarter will be
mhm,
at XCal, one time a quarter, one time a
mhm.
quarter in Richmond. And then the third month of the quarter, we're going to be, Virginia Beach, Roanoke, wherever. We're laying all that out. So we're going to move around the state. So you will have an opportunity from time to time. And occasionally we'll do an extra one, an extra meeting. We'll just have a good situation come up where we got a good deal somewhere on a room or whatever to hold the meeting. And we'll just do an extra one.
Or a picnic.
Picnics?
We
Yeah.
do those. And if you want to have a meeting in your area, and you know of a good place to hold the meeting, contact president at vcdl.org and work out a time and a date, and we'll work on getting meetings near you. So the other thing I wanted to say, tomorrow morning we have a committee meeting. I don't have my calendar open here. Is that the Senate or the House Courts of
It,
Justice tomorrow morning?
it's the Senate Courts of Justice. That's where a bunch of House bills are going to be heard.
Okay. And then in the afternoon, there's a House Courts of Justice. So you may be able to go online. You go to the LIS website or Virginia General Assembly, all spelled out.gov, and look for the committee links, and you can leave comments online, and the comments that you put in online follow the bill around. So anybody that's considering that bill can see those comments. You can also testify virtually on a lot of those. The Senate ones, they don't put the link up until like an hour. Well, it's supposed to be 30 minutes before the meeting, but sometimes it's an hour before, sometimes it's 2 hours before, sometimes it's 10 minutes before. It depends on the meeting. So that's another one of the games that they've been playing this year. So anyway, you can keep up with all of the bills on our legislative tracker. That's vcdl-lis.org. I'll put that in the comments. And I think that's all that I have.
Yeah, I think that's probably the major thing right now. Again, we'll have our face-to-face meeting for those up in Northern Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And soon we'll be getting together and going. We'll be sending you information so that we can all start contacting the governor, and and I'll also be communicating through my own channels on these bills. But we have to ask the governor again to step up to the plate and veto a whole bunch of really bad stuff. And he
And
did a great job last year.
there's still veto coins available. The money raised on that supports the lawsuits fighting the unconstitutional bills that were passed in 2020 and 2021. Um, what else was I going to say? There was something else. I don't remember what it was. Oh
Well, the
well.
way you'll remember is you'll end the meeting and then you'll remember.
Yes, I remember what it was.
Ah,
We gave you guys your homework. So every one of you go out and talk to at least 5 people and talk to them about constitutional republic versus a democracy and why it's important to protect our Second Amendment rights, and get commitments from them to vote in all the elections and get active in your local and state governments. So VCDL is grassroots. So that means you guys are VCDL, and we count on you to do things. It's the board kind of guides the ship. We go down and we lobby on your behalf and we send out emails and things like that. But it's you guys that actually deal with your local governments and let us know when something's going on a local level, and talk to your friends and family and bring them to meetings, and share the VA alerts with them, and help us educate the population. We're only 7 people on the board, and with Jill, that's 8, and then we have a handful of executive members, but we have thousands of members. And if all of those members contact just 5 people, and out of those 5 people, if you motivate 2, imagine how much impact we could have.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I will leave you with that. And I wish you all well. And if you have money riding on the Super Bowl, I hope your team wins.
Or send it to the VCDL. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you in the next one. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining
Bye.
us. Share this tomorrow with the friends that couldn't make it because they were watching the Super Bowl.
We're way funner.
Yep. Good night.
Right.